Good morning, everyone. This is Christy Arsenault, and I'm happy to welcome you to today's webinar about UMNB's Climate Change and Energy Initiative. We're still waiting to get Yves' audio up and running, so in the meantime, I'm going to unmute everyone, and if we could do a round table just to introduce each other to see who is on the line. And then give Yves a chance to get up and running. That would be great. So who all is with us this morning?
Okay, I'm online now. Do you hear me?
Hi, Yves.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I will put my headphone now.
Excellent. So Yves, we just opened up the lines, and we're going to do a quick round table. And then once we've all introduced each other, I'm going to mute everybody's line and hand the screen over to you to take over the webinar. And while everyone's lines are muted, we still have the chat box function up and running so that if there are questions along the way, I will be monitoring the chat box and we will pass those questions on to Yves. So good morning again. I'm Christy Arsenault, and who do we have on the line with us?
Maybe you can call. It might be easier to call by name, just because everybody's systems are different.
Okay, sounds good. And if you don't have your microphones hooked up, if you can just raise your hand. On here, I see Ashley Jones and David Taylor and Jason Palizet, Ken Stanix,
I'm here.
and Marta Kelly.
So welcome, everybody.
Oh, I see the hands raising up that they're here. Also, Eddie Oldfield is on the line, and Yves Hennekens is with us. So I'm going to go, that's the roll call so far. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone because we're getting a bit of feedback in the background. And I'm going to hand over the screen. Yves, are you ready? Sorry, Yves, are you ready for me to hand it over?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
But I just wanted to ask a little question.
Sure.
To Eddie, if he wanted to make an introduction for the project, because well, if Eddie wants to do a small introduction, no?
Absolutely. I was letting Christy handle the reins for the webinar today, Yves, but sure, I can mention a few things. So welcome everybody this morning to this webinar. I'm very happy Yves has been able to join us today and share an overview of the UMNB Climate Change and Energy Initiative. As some of you know, I'm boots on the ground. I'll be meeting with many of you over the coming months as we go forward in the project. And of course, Yves and I collaborate. So Yves, I don't want to take too much time.
Okay.
Yes?
Okay, that's it. Okay, well, thank you very much, Christy and Eddie, and it's a pleasure to have that presentation. I'm sorry, oops. Sorry, I just a little thing because I have to put it on to do the presentation on my laptop. So, well, it's the CCEI. So excuse my English. Sometimes my accent can be a bit wrong or whatever. It's a project which is I would say first of the kind in Canada. It's because I can say it's a kind of a second generation greenhouse gas inventory and action plan, and it's taking the approach of community energy planning. So it's the first time that in Canada, there's a group of municipalities doing greenhouse gas inventory, action plan with the CEP approach, community energy planning approach. So that's one of innovative aspect of this, the UMNB CC Climate Change and Energy Initiative. The second innovative aspect of this project is that we try to build action plan based on model and pilot projects. So, of course, when you do an action plan, there's many types of projects. But in this kind of initiative, when we're working, for example, with the Hennekens, UMNB, or other group of municipalities, it's really to have kind of find champions in some kind of project. So can be transport, building, and we can even open up to new kind of initiative like resiliency. And what happened last week in New Brunswick, it's a good example of the need. We have to be innovative and see new things and test new things. So that's the second approach, that second innovative approach that we have in this project. So first of all, I want to present the action plan strategy. It's the triangle. So on the top, it's
Yves, just before we go any further, your screen, I sent you a request to share the screen. I'm not seeing your screen yet. Did you
my
see?
screen? Oh, okay. Well, how can I? Sorry. For the presentation, for the
Yes, you can share your presentation if you have a PowerPoint.
Oh, sorry. How do I do that? Sorry.
So she sent a request to share your screen. You would accept it?
Where is that? I'm not sure. Wait. Yeah.
Et puis là, then you run the PowerPoint. Yep. Now we see it.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. Because I was wondering about them. Okay, so everybody, you can see. Sorry. You see all my message too. Okay. So right now you see. Okay. So as I was saying, I'm how much time I have?
You have about 40 minutes, half an hour.
Okay, that's okay. Okay. So as I was there. I was explaining the approach. I didn't know I could share the PowerPoint. Sorry, because I'm maybe in French we say quelques not that bad, but not far. So as I was explaining, we have a triangle. So as for the action plan, the approach is really have to identify model project and pilot project. And then that's really important because it can be on certain sector. For example, as I was saying, on transportation, buildings, and using renewable energy opportunities. For example, biomass, or you can have like solar project, and we do a couple of solar projects in like few municipalities where there's an opportunity and a need. So this is the kind of project also that now, well, with the FCM, we can get interesting funding. In fact, very interesting funding. So they're looking for this kind of project. Again, the approach makes it really interesting because instead of having only one project, we can regroup projects. So having 11 municipalities participating in this CCEI, well then we can find 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 sometimes. And in the UMNB case, we have even more than that on certain projects. Municipality regrouping for a pilot project or a model project. So that's interesting because with the funding, it's optimal because you can go get the maximum of the subsidy, and at the same time, only with one, I would say, administration procedure. You know, we make one application instead of making 5 applications. So that's really interesting for the FCM because they want that kind of project. They're looking for that kind of project. And that's also the niche we developed with YHC and working in Quebec, in Canada, and so. After in the action plan construction, there's a project, business as usual project that energy efficiency, new building. You have this kind of new technologies and equipment that are more efficient. So this kind of project are also included in the action plan. And it's important because we have to consider it according to the greenhouse gas reduction potential or results we can go get by applying, implementing those projects. And there's of course actual projects that municipalities are already doing besides the fact of doing the action plan. They already building new infrastructures, new buildings, and it's already done between the year of the greenhouse gas inventory. For example, we're taking 2015 or 16. 16 is harder to get information on data for the inventory, but it's easier for example, to read 1 or 2 years. I would say 2 years between the actual year when we're doing the greenhouse gas inventory and the data as we're using for the inventory. So we will use 2015. So between 2015 and 2017, you find projects. So we have to consider also the reduction, and we have to consider those projects in the action plan because they've done. You have to consider it. So that's also in the PCP methodology. The quest approach, that's really interesting on the sense that, as I said earlier, it's the innovative aspect of this kind of project. A lot of, I can't say a lot, but there's many municipalities, big cities, and usually it's big cities. In fact, in Ontario, they made in BC. Made this community energy planning. The reason why it's popular in Ontario and in BC because energy context is different from New Brunswick or Quebec or other provinces. For example, Manitoba, where you have one big energy supplier, electric energy supplier. In Ontario, you have a lot of suppliers for electricity, for natural gas. So it makes, and there's also a lot of municipal distributed energy. So the CP, it becomes an important and very, very interesting and powerful tool to plan. So in New Brunswick, you have one big provider of electricity, the UMNB, NB Power, sorry. And you have Enbridge for natural gas. So that's the two big distributors you can find in New Brunswick. So the fact of bringing the CP approach is that and with this project and working with Eddie, you bring a new way of thinking your action. Usually, and it's more spatial, I would say geographic, spatial, sorry. Where it is, my pronunciation is not good. So that's really interesting. But that's usually when you do a common action plan, you look at it, say we have to build a new infrastructure, ice rink. So you do it like priority and political need and economic need. And I didn't mention, but in the PCP approach, we have to do a greenhouse gas inventory for the municipality itself. We call it the corporate greenhouse inventory, and also for the community. And we have to prepare a action plan for corporate, for the municipality itself, and also for the community. When you're doing that regularly with municipality in the normal way, it's much harder to reach the community because you have cannot impose and force them to do projects. So you have to present it in a way it's interesting. So in the process, it's I would say quite dry. You kind of theoretically presenting project, hoping that stakeholders and partners will adopt. So when we in this approach with the CCEI, we developed a I would say process. So we have 2 workshops. I'm going further in the presentation, but to come back with with the quest approach. So in the step, we have a first workshop, which is really really throwing ideas and presenting and doing the mapping. So we're presenting ideas. And then we have a second workshop. I would call it a decisional workshop. Or between the first workshop and the second workshop, we study, I mean the team, YHC, with Eddie, and with partners, we're studying what was proposed in the first workshop. And then we come back with costs and results we expected. Of course, it's not feasibility studies, but we can say kind of a pre-feasibility procedures to see, to really, get more information on what was identified as a potential interesting project. So I'm coming back with the quest approach. The quest approach is then you mapping, and that's really interesting because it was working with Quest and Eddie in the last couple of years and doing webinars, not webinars, conference and workshop actually in New Brunswick. It was in Bathurst and Dalhousie with Christy, and I really remarqué, I really constaté, how do you say it?
Ouais, remarqué.
Okay, I saw, it's not a good word, but anyway, I really saw it was interesting when you were mapping project, how people could have more ideas and also like seeing more opportunities, and it was really a way of giving priority to project because you're seeing it, you see what you can do on a map. It was kind of a new dimension on how you can take a decision. So mapping is a tool for community energy planning. But that's really interesting because you're placing data on a geographic dimension. So that's really, really interesting. And that's the thing that we want to do in this project and try to do, because you need a lot of information. So it will be also a challenge, and that's why we did it with the FCN. It's not a regular action plan. It's not a regular approach. So we're trying. We will get as much data as we can to do it, present it on a mapping and CP approach according to what we can get. Actually, my experience with New Brunswick, that's that there's big need. Municipalities sometimes are not. They have they need a lot of resource, and a financial resource is scattered on the territory. Sometimes the municipalities are very small. On the other hand, they're very dynamic. They're really interested, and we have a very, very good participation. Whether it was with the UMNB, Greenhouse Gas Inventory Master Plan, or even actually on project I'm working. So that's really interesting. So I'm positive that we will do something interesting. So that's really the quest approach, that CP, this mapping, and placing those actions, the action plan, also on a geographic dimension. So I talked about the approach. Let's just go. Well, we want to, as I was saying, we want a model project that's really to create models and to improve quality of life in the region, locally and regionally. So we want, as much as possible, use the knowledge, the experience, and the resource that we can find regionally, locally, and regionally. That's really a mission we have in this project, and we use it in the FMNB, and it really worked well. There's in the FCM. There's 5 big sectors related to environmental issues and also greenhouse gas emissions. So there's the waste, brownfield waste, transportation issues, water, and energy. That's big 5 sectors. FCM program are changing. There's new opportunities. They got received more money, but the program are not yet out. It's not officially out, but it's going to be very interesting. So for this kind, my top of my triangle, my pyramid, the next couple of years may be very, very interesting. A couple of years, 2 or 3 years, or maybe 4 years, if we still have a budget and the will to do that kind of thing. So this is explaining a little bit how we work and we think this stuff, model and pilot project. Here, the organigram of the process. We want to do it in the fast, but not. We will take time to do it like properly and to be able to bring good deliverable, if you can say it, you can use a word. So the first step is really, we're in the first step actually. It's really information toward consultation and getting the information to build the greenhouse gas inventory. That's what we're doing actually. On a community energy based inventory, we take like aggregate data, so we don't need necessarily the data coming from the municipality itself. So that we're quite far on this aspect. But we have to place we will have to place and discuss how we're mapping those data. That's going to be the technical issue. Also to be able to show it properly and to have a good tool. So when we have enough information and we're ready, we have identified the stakeholders and partners with the municipality, community, the municipality and its community, we go for a workshop. We will start end of March, beginning of April, and to do workshop in all municipalities. Maybe sometimes we will do group or we'll do it individually. Really, so we invite the as written say, field work with partners and stakeholders. Everybody's invited, and then it's a discussion. And if you assisted to Eddie's and Christy workshop last year, it will be a little bit like that. Really working on a map, bringing ideas, using data that greenhouse gas inventory that preliminary that we developed, and then throwing ideas, presenting what is the priority, and we will gather all this information. Step 3, it's the decision workshop, as I was explaining. But between step 2 and step 3, the team is really looking all the information we gathered during those workshops, and the information, and also to go get complementary information and data to be able to analyze and study project, technology, equipment, and were proposed during this first workshop. On the second workshop, we call it really decisional. Then we present those results, the conclusion we have, and we say we recommend that this project. But it is the municipality and its community and the stakeholders and the partners who will decide really what kind of project they want to keep. So after this workshop, we finalize the action plan. And we have to present this action plan actually at the, which is the process that's imposed by I mean, it's the SEM. It's really, they have to adopt the action plan and the target greenhouse gas reduction. The council has to adopt it. So that's the final step, and then we report it to the SEM. Well, this is not really a good. I did another presentation for Eddie. That's the big, all the steps we have. It's hard to read, but it's all the things we have to do. In orange, it's really UMNB municipalities. Yellow is the team, and the blue thing is really what the team why achieve. We have to do internal work to be ready to go forward with this project. I think it's kind of. And I'm gonna. Eddie, did I forgot something?
No, that's excellent overview, Yves. And I wonder, perhaps, Christy, you've been monitoring if there's any questions. Would it be okay with you, Yves, if we opened it up for questions?
Oh, no problem. No problem.
There aren't any questions that have come through the chat box just yet, but if anyone has any, go ahead, type them in, and I'll read them out to Yves.
Okay, super. And I think, though, you'll just have to monitor that as it goes. And if there's enough of interest, we can unmute a line for somebody to speak directly. Or if they put their hand up, can they do that?
Yes, they can.
Okay. No, Yves, that was excellent, and it was very well described, the process and the approach. No, it really is. So thank you for that. And of course, I'm involved with this. It's but it's important that we are able to communicate out with these communities. As far as the data goes, how far are we in the collection of the data? Is there anything missing at this point for the inventories?
Yes, we'll have some, but I didn't. Yeah, there's a couple of municipalities we're missing data, corporate data. For the community, we have everything we needed, except when we will present it, we always have new, things we didn't have completely. But some sectors that are harder to get. But we still have. Well, Eddie, you asked me a question, but somewhere you know a little bit more than me. I didn't put it about I think we missed St. John and a couple of municipalities, Dalhousie.
Yeah, only a few. Yeah.
We do have a question that came through, and the question is, are the workshops being organized for joint municipalities or individual municipalities?
We'll still have to, it will depend. It will depend of the size of the number of partners and stakeholders, and also if municipalities are close to each other, it's easier to have like a workshop because stakeholders and partners may be the same. We don't know. Yeah, we will organize depending of the will of the municipality.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did I understood well? Is it okay or?
Yes, it was. Yes.
And also to elaborate, Yves, on the mapping, that was excellent. We're using the data that's available from the province and from the federal government as the base map data. And as I've been meeting with these municipalities, I've also asked for some additional data like zoning and municipal building locations. And so that will help us create the maps that we need for the consultation workshop and gather the community inputs. And we would like to be able to map the inventory data, but as you mentioned, the data for the community side is aggregate, which means that it's rolled up. It's a one value for residential, one value for commercial, and one value for industrial. Whereas the corporate is more detailed, more granular. So for mapping purposes, what that means is when you show that kind of information on a map, the detailed municipal data will be very specific, but your community values will be showing as one color or one area. And so working with the community stakeholders, getting the zoning, for example, perhaps even going to the utilities and looking at this at another pass is how do we map energy or emissions data in a way that is useful to understand the trends and how our plan is going to take us to a lower carbon, lower energy cost future. And those maps will then take all the inputs from the community, and the outputs of that will inform the plan, and we'll be able to present some of the elements, some of the actions in that plan using the maps.
So if anyone has any other questions, just fire them off. We're still monitoring this line. Eddie, there haven't been any others just to this point. Yves, thank you so much for your participation in this and sharing the update on the project. It's really.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
And are you okay with just waiting for one more minute to see if any other questions come through?
Maybe we have a little bit of fun. I have a question because about resiliency project, because what happened in New Brunswick last week. And I know that the FCM is not an issue because they want to really target those kind of projects, but they don't have the okay from the board really to invest money. But what do you think about the need to work on resiliency projects about climate change?
Well, I can.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. That was for kind of Christy. You know pretty well what's the issue in the municipality and you, but especially according to what happened last week, how New Brunswick will be more than open for.
Well, it's a great anecdote story I can tell you, Yves. Was in Miramichi last week, running. Well, I was supposed to run a resiliency planning workshop with the emergency planners, and of course the ice storm took precedent. But that was one of 7 workshops we're running across the province, and certainly a lot of the mayors and councillors and emergency planners that are participating are sharing with us some of the needs and issues they're having. Some of those tie to energy as well. And there's even been specifically, I think even last night at our workshop, one of the participants indicated it would be good to have a policy around renewables for things like backup generation or heat, but also for regular use, I would imagine. So I think the thinking is evolving, and resiliency is many things. So I won't get into all of that right now, but it's certainly something that's front and center now because of the ice storm, and we should take advantage. I hate to say that a disaster will do that, but it's true. It's shown that after about 6 months, people's attention span wanes from that. So I think that as we go forward in this project, it will be interesting, like you say, and all the opportunities that are there, including where can we improve resiliency through some of these projects.
What I thought.
Yeah, and and it's funny because that ice storm, shocking as it was very similar to the ice storm in 1998 in Montreal.
Yeah.
So thank you, both of you. We don't have any other questions that have come through, so I would say that that's a wrap for this particular webinar. Thank
Thank
you,
you very much.
everyone who came online. Thank you, Yves. Thank you, Eddie. This concludes this section of the Quest webinars, and keep your eyes open for any future energy and climate change